Hey everyone, I know everyone's logging on for this very first webinar by Child Rescue Coalition. I'll give people a couple of minutes to get on, but welcome to Generation, a lifelong fight to end child abuse. We are so excited and happy and grateful for your support and that everyone is here tonight. I know we wish we could be doing this event live and in person, but we're so grateful we have this technology to still come together even in times like we are right now. My name is Kristen Hewitt. I'm a television reporter in South Florida. I'll be moderating this event tonight. I'm also a proud supporter of Child Rescue Coalition and can't wait to bring you this event tonight. Before we get started, I want to ask everybody that's coming in to pick up your cell phone, and we need you to text the words join the fight, all one word, no spaces, join the fight, to that number you see on your screen, 800-489-8102. Again, that's 800-489-8102. Text join the fight, and that's going to bring you important updates throughout this webinar, and we hope you will do that first. Okay, so tonight, you guys, we have four very, very special speakers that you see on your screen. They're going to take us through an intimate conversation all about child abuse and the evolution of predators and the tools we need to fight them. And it's going to end with the premiere of a short film created by Eyes on Your Mission called Join the Fight. It's a short educational film, and we can't wait for you guys to see that. So let's get this party started. I'm so excited to see you all. Let's start to introduce you to our guests. Okay, first and foremost is a guy you might have heard of. He's the only guy on our panel tonight. You might have heard his name a time or two. He's a crime fighter, victims' right advocate, Emmy-winning host of the former show America's Most Wanted, and current host of Investigation Discoveries In Pursuit. He's John Walsh. John, thanks for being here tonight.
Honored to be here. Glad to be here.
We also have his wonderful daughter, Megan. She's also a victims' right advocate, as well as the founder of her own business, Generation Independent. It's a holistic lifestyle and healing company. She co-produced the short film that you're going to get a chance to see tonight and did some of the voiceover as well. Megan, thanks for being here.
So much. It's such an honor. Thank you for having me.
You were fawning over your set, your faux set earlier. We love your house, by the way.
Thank you. Here I am.
All right, we also have the founder and COO of Child Rescue Coalition. Always a pleasure to talk to Carly Yost. Carly, hi.
Hi, and thank you guys. Thank you to the amazing team with us today that helped put this event together and this video. We're really excited.
Yeah, and speaking of the video, last but certainly not least, here is Jessica Kazorik. She's an activist, president of Two Parent Productions, and creator at Eyes on Your Mission. Jessica, thank you so much. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you tonight.
Hey, so excited. Very long time in the coming.
Yes, finally we got to do this event. Okay, so before we start, we have a little bit of business. You might notice on your screen that we're all wearing red t-shirts. So everybody show off your t-shirts. You might not know, but Child Rescue Coalition has a shop on their website. And this is a very special, oh, look at John stood up. He is showing off his Join the Fight t-shirt. These are available. You can purchase these, and the dollars that are used to purchase these go to help save a child from childhood sexual abuse. So this is one way that you can donate to Child Rescue Coalition. So we hope you get your special t-shirt created just for this event. Also, guys, please remember this is a free event, but Child Rescue Coalition is self-funded, and they really need your help to keep children safe and out of the hands of child predators. So anything you can do to donate, just look at that chat on your screen, and you can donate by the t-shirts. You can click the links there. Also, keep in mind at the end of this program, if there's time permitting, you can ask questions to any of the panelists. There's a Q&A button there at the bottom. You can type in your questions there, and we will hopefully have time to get to those, because that's what makes these webinars fun, right? We get to chat with everybody here in the chat, and I love people are leaving you guys comments. So if you, for our panelists that are here, if you can read them, you guys can see who's here for you tonight. All right, enough of me talking. You don't want to hear me talking. Let's get down to business, and let's bring in Carly Yost. Carly, first of all, congratulations. We finally got this event off the ground. So congrats on your very first Child Rescue Coalition webinar.
Thank you. Yeah, I know we wanted to do this event in person, but this is great that we can get everyone around the world connected and being able to see it together.
And in our CRC Red, which I love. All right, Carly, let's back up and give us a little history lesson here, because you are very connected. Your family was very connected to the Walsh family. How did that begin? How are your families intertwined?
Yeah, I've really been so lucky to have known the Walshes for a large part of my life. So it was actually my father, Hank Asher, and John Walsh that met in the early 90s. And a lot of times I get to talk about Child Rescue Coalition, but I don't really get to give a big history of how I got involved in this and what exactly my father did in the law enforcement world and investigative industry. But it was actually in the early 90s when he was developing a tool called AutoTrack that was when he met John. And for the first time, he was building technology that was able to build a database that allowed investigators to look for cars that might have been a kidnapping suspect or a hit and run or involved in an endangered child case. And it was really meeting John, which fueled his passion to build these type of technologies to really help children and help missing kids. And he just really became passionate about anything he could do to support the cause. So it really was their passion for protecting children that drew them together, but really developed into a true friendship, which has been amazing. It really became my father's biggest passion. So actually, after he developed Accurant, he went on to develop, AutoTrack. He went on to develop Accurant, which then was sold to LexisNexis, and then developed another database technology, which was TLOXP, which was his latest and greatest. John was very involved in that. And like I said, from meeting John and being one of his good friends, child protection was his most important cause. And so he always said whatever technology he creates, he's going to donate for free to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And in any case that could be used to help find a missing child. But really just knowing them, knowing John and seeing the two personalities together. My father had a personality that was bigger than life, and John has that same personality too. The two of them were magnetic and just a fun force to be around, and really have just been amazing. So one thing that I was excited to tell him and make sure he knew is my father knew so many people throughout his life, had so many friends along the way, but actually few true friends. And John really was a true friend to my dad, and has been an amazing supporter and true friend to our family even after he passed away. So John called me the day that my father passed away and really meant so much to me, that called that day and has checked in, has been such a big supporter of us starting Child Rescue Coalition and the tool that we have. We've gotten to know Megan and know Reve so well, and Callahan and the whole family. They're just truly amazing people. And they've continued to support us along the way. Even after my father passed away, they held an event at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children that was just a whole tribute and honor to him, which was really one of the most touching things. And I just wanted to thank John and the whole family for their continued support. And this video is just another example of how they've continued to support our mission at Child Rescue Coalition and us as a family. Definitely wanted to thank you, Megan, and John and Jessica for that.
Oh, it's so touching to hear that story and hear that history, because I don't think anyone really understood, the history of the software and where you came from. So I want to bring in John now, because John Walsh, you have done so much. We probably need a 12-part mini series to even scratch the surface of what you've done in the course of your career. But for those of people watching who might not know your story, what brought you and your wife Reve into this work that has now become your life's mission?
Well, Kristen, thank you for doing this tonight, first of all, and everybody for joining us on this panel, and people that have tuned into this wonderful event. But I wanted to say one thing about Hank in the Asher family. Carly was talking about how I met Hank years and years ago in the 90s. He reached out to me saying that he had developed a product called AutoTrack that could track people from a partial plate, and that it worked, and police agencies used it all over the country and some of them internationally. And he wanted to donate it to the National Center for free because cops paid for the use of it to help us find missing children if we had tips on a partial plate or a car or whatever. So I went, thank you so much, Hank. You know, I got to, and he says, you know, John, you're a warrior. I'm a warrior. He says, if I ever really expand my companies, because a lot of people don't know, Hank has the moniker in the tech world of being called the grandfather of data mining. And that was Hank's specialty. He was way ahead of the curve. Now Facebook and everybody does it, but Hank had the first companies that really were involved in data mining. And he said, I hope I get wildly successful, because I believe that by doing well, you can do good. And if I ever get there, I'm going to donate money to the National Center and every program I do. He wound up being the largest donor, and a lot of people get confused. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children is the entity my wife, Reve, and I started. She actually started in our garage, and we work hand in hand with CRC. They do a certain amount of things very well, and the National Center and CRC are joined at the hip in the battle to protect children and catch the bad guys who do it. Matter of fact, they have caught over 1,200 bad guys online. But Hank and I got to be tight. And then Hank said, what can I do for you besides AutoTrack and Seisint? I need to help you in a more proactive way. He developed a software that could catch pedophiles in real time on the internet. And I asked the then governor of Florida and the attorney general to try Hank's software. We called it Operation Orange Tree because it's Florida. And he tried it with 27 police agencies, and we recovered, I think it was 11 children that were being victimized in the home by live-in boyfriends, stepdaddies, babies, male babysitters, etc. We arrested in that 1 month over 100 plus pedophiles around, because Hank's software, you could catch them online in real time. No one in the country, nowhere in the world had developed a software like this. So it became wildly successful, and Hank gave it away to law enforcement agencies in Florida and other places to perfect it. And Hank wound up being our largest donor ever. He gave us $13 million to the National Center. So he and I joined the battle. As a matter of fact, we were partners in the last company, TLO, that he did, because we dreamed that we could use technology and software to protect children and to catch bad guys. And it really proved to be incredibly effective. And the National Center uses that software today. And we have the similar function as CRC. We have cops there, marshals, FBI, etc. And that's Hank Asher's legacy. And Carly, like my daughter Megan, you know, beautiful daughters of kind of, you know, warrior type fathers, put it nicely, I guess, but to continue the battle. And they both continue the battle, which is such a nice part of this tonight. But that, I just had to say something about Hank and the Asher family, because Hank and I became lifelong friends. He just didn't donate. He just didn't develop, you know, tech programs, algorithms and software that caught bad guys. He was a great friend and a generous, incredibly generous friend. So we got very close with him. At the time, in 1981, before I met Hank, I thought Reve and I had the American dream. We lived in Hollywood, Florida. We had waited a long time to have a child, wanted to make sure that we could afford it, that we would be good parents. And we had beautiful Adam, who I named after my father, was a World War II hero, wonderful guy, won 15 medals bombing the Pacific. So I thought, what's a great name for this little boy would be Adam Walsh. And so Reve and I, she was a world-class mother, brought Adam to school every day, picked him up, so protective, wouldn't let him even ride his bike in the driveway. She didn't feel he was old enough yet, 6.5. But we called him the little gentleman because really he was a wonderful, very sweet, loving little boy. And I had worked my way through the hotel industry. I was lucky enough to save the son of the president of the Diplomat Hotel on the beach when I was a beach boy lifeguard. And he gave me my first job. And from that first job, John Monahan was my mentor, took me around the world and taught me the hotel business, everything from budgets, marketing, advertising, whatever. And then he pushed me out the door and said, you need to go on to bigger and better things. So in 1981, I was a partner in my own company with 3 other guys from Texas. We built and developed deluxe 5-star hotels. We were building the Paradise Grand on Paradise Island, a $26 million hotel, our biggest project to date. And I thought, wow, my office is in Coral Gables. I fly to the Bahamas because I had worked in the Bahamas for years and was well known in the Bahamas, building this dream hotel. And July 27th, 1981, I kissed Reve goodbye, kissed Adam goodbye, said I'm going to work down in Coral Gables. Reve said I'm, going to take Adam to school, pick him up later. And that was the day, the worst day of our life, when Adam was kidnapped. So during those 2 weeks in 1981, as you can imagine, the 2 worst weeks of our life, I wound up staying and living in the conference room at the Hollywood Police Department because my partners, my 3 partners and I felt that although they were well-intended and a lot of those cops had children, they didn't have a clue what they were doing. They didn't search for Adam. They didn't know what a grid search was. The FBI refused to get involved in the case because they said the kid business is a dirty business. They never came up to Hollywood to talk to Hollywood police until 6 days into the case. And during those 2 weeks, my partners paid for people to search for Adam, to buy gas for searchers. The Hollywood police didn't have cadets or any organized search looking for him. Nowhere for tips to come in. We set up our own hotline in my house and tapped the phones. It was just the police were over their head. It was one mistake after another. And then the topper was that it wasn't a big thing in the media. It lasted a couple days and fell off the radar. And the coroner of Broward County called me up one day, I think 8 or 9 days into the search. He says, have you looked at the booking photos of convicted pedophiles? I went, what are pedophiles? And he says, I can't believe the cops haven't shown you those booking photos. That's the people who want to have sex with children. And I went, oh my God. He says, you also have to call every coroner in the state of Florida. And I said, Adam's not dead. He's probably with some grandparents who lost a grandchild in a DUI or through childbirth. And they've taken this beautiful little kid by and made a big mistake. And he went, nope, I've got 4 bodies here in the Broward County morgue, 4 girls between ages of 12 to about 16. They were all murdered by different men, by Johns. And I said, what's a John? And he says, that's a guy who pays to have sex with children. Because when kids come to Fort Lauderdale, the runaway capital of the East Coast, LA, the runaway capital of the West Coast, when these little girls come here from terrible families, dysfunctional families, drugs and alcohol, what can they do? They sell drugs or they sell their bodies. And these 4 girls are mandated by state Florida law to be buried in a Jane Doe grave. But I won't bury them. I'm preparing the cases and hope someday the cops find who killed them. If it's 4 different guys or 2 different guys, then I'll be able to prosecute them. And he said, is Adam in the NCIC? And I went, what's the NCIC? He says, we got to call the governors and you got to ask the cops if they put him in the National Crime Information Computer. And I said, what is that? He said, hundreds of thousands of stolen cars, boats, planes, and $1 million thoroughbred, but no missing children. There is no repository for cases of missing children. There's no unidentified dead file. And I said, wait a second, we put a man on the moon and I have to call coroners to find out if my son's body is in a morgue somewhere and they're going to bury it in an unmarked grave and never be able to tell me. He said, in Florida, we're the only state that does it. The coroners here exchange information on a voluntary basis by mail every 6 months. I went, you're kidding. I can access the stock exchange in Hong Kong in 5 minutes and we can find out how many dead kids are buried in this country or how many are in morgues around the country. He said, you should double the reward, get the media back there, find Paula Hawkins, who was one of the first senators, female senators, the United States Senate. He has introduced a bill called the Missing Children's Bill that will mandate parents be allowed to put the information on their missing child in the NCIC. He gave me this laundry list. He was a lawyer. He had done Elvis's autopsy. He was the first person who helped me in those 2 weeks because the search was going nowhere. He said, you've got to get on television somewhere. I said, I've already called ABC, CBS, and NBC, only 3 channels back in 1981. not the 1,000-channel universe. And they had all turned me down. They had all said, if we do it for you, we have to do it for every other kid that's missing. We don't do local stories. Finally, I badgered my way on Good Morning America. Reve and I went to New York to do it on the 14th day. And that's when they found Adam's severed head about 100 miles north of Fort Lauderdale. FBI didn't help us. There was no search. There were no Amber Alerts. There was no National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. There was nothing. And Adam wasn't the first kid that was ever kidnapped. The day we went on Good Morning America, we went there at 7 in the morning. I'll never forget it. There were 3 women standing outside there. And they said, oh, one of them said, I'm Eton Pates' mother. He's a little boy that was kidnapped at the bus stop in New York. And the other 2 had missing children too. And they went, I said, what are you? And they said, Child Find. I went, oh, great, there's an organization. They went, there's no organization. There's just us mothers. We've been looking for our kids. Would you beg David Hartman in Good Morning America to show our kids pictures too, along with Adam? And I went, okay. So we went on GMA and I asked David Hartman, he showed the pictures, and Reve and the 3 women went to lunch while I went back to the hotel to wait for some news, because my best friend, who was helping me through the search, had gotten a call in the middle of the night about the finding of this skull, and they wanted dental charts. So I said to him, his name's Jeff O'Regan, I said, Jeff, it couldn't be Adam. He says, no way. Who would cut the head off of a child? Who would do this to a child? I said, I know the dentist. Jeff, you get those teeth, those dental charts. And he says, John, I'm driving up to Indian River County, and I'm sure it won't be a match, but I'm talking to him really quietly on the phone in the middle of the night because Reve hadn't slept for 2 weeks. And he said, I'll call you. So Reve went to lunch with the 3 mothers to help them. I went back to the hotel. I don't remember doing it, but I do remember him calling me and he was sobbing, saying that it is Adam's skull. And they did a big NBC movie called Adam, and Dan Travanti played me. And in the movie, he destroys the hotel room, which I still to this day don't remember doing. Smash the television, break everything in the room. I remember security coming up, breaking the door down, giving me a doctor, giving me a sedative, house doctor, and us rushing back to Florida, going out to the airport, and all the media that didn't look for Adam were camped out on our front lawn. It was a nightmare. We had to get cops to get us in our own front door. And the media was brutal, asking Megan Reve, how do you feel now after the search? Find your son has been decapitated. How the hell did they think you feel? We didn't know the rules. We didn't know the media could be so intrusive and cold-blooded and ruthless. And that was the beginning of our battle. And the post office delivered what they guesstimated were 40,000 letters and cards to our house one day. And Reve received them all in the garage. I was trying to go back to work because our hotel was going to open. I lost 30 pounds, throw up during the day 1,000,000 times. But Reve was in that garage opening every letter. Some of the letters were mass cards and condolences, but you have no idea how many were. How did you match that search? How did you come up with the first poster? I have a missing child. My ex-husband took my kids. My ex-wife took my kids. My kid's a runaway and we haven't seen him for years. And Reve said, John, it's overwhelming what's gone on with children and there is so little to help them. Her first idea was to start an Adam Walsh Center in Broward County, which became the Adam Walsh Center in Palm Beach, which eventually, after we got the Missing Children's Bill passed, I went from very successful in living the dream life to almost losing my house because we couldn't pay the mortgage. You can't work. My partners were great to me, but you can't function. You're the parent of a murdered child. They'll shut your power off. They do it to victims all over America when you can't pay your bills. But Reve was bound and determined to start some type of facility. I was determined to find out who killed Adam and arrange for his murder, because that's what goes on in the minds of men when their child are murdered. And I was dying of a broken heart. I lost 30 pounds. I didn't even look like the same guy. But she was going to do something good. So then I went to try to get Adam's remains, and I'll try to make the story shorter. Dr. Wright up in the morgue said, I work at night, come up at 11 o'clock. I got up there and I said, look, I want Adam's skull. He says, I can't give it to you. It's state's evidence in an unsolved homicide. that skull will reside here, and it did for 27 years. We never were able to bury Adam or to go see him. And it's part of evidence. And he said to me, you look horrible. He says, you're being doubly victimized, aren't you? That's what happens to crime victims. They lose a loved one and the family disintegrates. And he said, I'll bet you're suicidal. And I went, that's none of your business. I didn't come up here for a lecture. And what do I have to live for? I lost my faith in God. I've lost my only child. The only thing my wife and I have in common is this horrible murder, and I can't work. I'm losing my company, or at least I'm going to be out of the company. And I said, how do you do it? How the hell do you do these autopsies and deal with this? He said, John, I won't bury those girls I told you about. I'm going to find out I'm going to get all the evidence I can for the DA's office, and I'm going to put those bastards on death row. He says, I don't know if you believe in the death penalty or not. He says, but child murderers should be executed. They can come back as a dolphin or a butterfly in the next life, but they should be off the planet because they're the worst type of criminals. Their rate of recidivism is the highest, and I've learned to know that hunting pedophiles down. And he said, and I said, so what do you believe in? He said, I said, what keeps you going? And he said, I believe in a higher power. I don't know if it's Buddhist, Jewish, Hindu, it's Protestant, but it's a higher power that gives people free will. The guy who killed Adam is a horrible person, probably with no remorse, probably a serial child predator, which he was dead right. And he said, and he chose to do evil. He said, you lived your life trying to do good, coach your kids' teams, you know, all the good things you did in the community. You and your wife were great parents. And he said, you have the free will. He said, so why don't you stop feeling sorry for yourself? Why don't you always talk about on TV saddling up and getting business because you're a horse guy and your wife is too? Why don't you get off your ass and saddle up and get up to Washington and battle for the missing children's bill, which the FBI is opposing? They had quoted the New York Times saying that couple in Florida can go pound salt. There will never be a missing children's bill. I borrowed the money. He said, do me a favor. Make sure Adam didn't die in vain. It was the best advice I got. It turned me from a very angry, suicidal, broken-hearted father into the warrior that Hank Asher thought I was. And I went up and took on Congress, and I'm still doing it after 35 plus years. And now the Little Adam Walsh Center became the National Center for Missing Exploited Children, 350 employees in Washington, D.C. We have 5 branches, the biggest one being in Palm Beach. And we got to be involved with CRC, which Carly did very similar thing. Hank and she created CRC in Hank's business life, and she's continued it after her father passed away. And we battled children. I got the missing children's bill passed. Reagan signed it in the Rose Garden and invited Reve and I to bring brand new Megan, who was about a year old, a year after Adam died. I believe she saved our lives, having a beautiful girl, a loving, beautiful person that she is. After Adam kept us, Reve and I, on the path. We got Amber Alert passed. Reagan helped us write the Missing Children's Assistance Bill, creating the National Center. President Bush, I've worked with 5 different presidents. President Bush, the son, got the Adam Walsh Act passed, which created a National Sex Offender Registry. So if a child goes missing, you know where the pedophiles are, registered, if one lives down the street, etc. And I mean, so much has happened in those years since 1981, but a lot of good people like Carly Asher and Hank Asher helped the Walsh families to change things, and to change things on a state level. Every state has a missing children's clearinghouse, background checks of teachers. I've been to every single state multiple times, but the testimonies before Congress passed federal laws, and we changed the way this country deals with missing and exploited children. Sex trafficking, kidnapping, stranger abductions, non-custodial abductions. CRC and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children battle every single day. It's a lot to put into one little story, but that's just one small part of it.
No,
But that's where we got today.
no, I know. And I'm sure everybody watching this is in tears as I am right now, just listening to just how courageous and brave you and your wife were, not only doing all the work, but continuing to talk and share your story and help so many families. I'm going to go a little off script here, John, but I know that you have saved over 1,100 children. You talked to, 1,100 criminals you've prosecuted or helped find. Carly's helped save, prosecute 1,200. But for you, what has been the most rewarding part of this? And it's kind of a two-part question. What did you learn from this? I mean, you literally rose from the ashes and you took this experience and did so much with it. And I'm always curious what people learn through their experiences.
That if you cared, because the father that was the war hero and everything, on his deathbed, he died at 52. I asked him why he quit Notre Dame. He was the first Irish guy in a big Irish family to get into college. He was a month away from graduating, and he volunteered and flew a B-24 bomber with 8 crew, kept him alive the whole war, and came back. Won 15 medals. And on his deathbed, I said, give me the fatherly advice. You brought molested children to our house. You've done abused children. You're just a great role model. You and my mother. And the two of them were just loved children, did all kinds of stuff. You know what he said to me? Evil prevails when good men do nothing. He said, remember that. Evil prevails when good men do nothing. He said, that's why I volunteered to fly a B-24. So his phenomenal, example was what kept me going. And then out of nowhere in 1987, some guy stops me in the Fort Lauderdale airport and taps me on the shoulder and says, we've been trying to get a hold of you. You're the hardest guy to get a hold of. I said, I'm busy. I'm going to Washington to testify. We're working closely with the FBI. I used to hate them. Now they're my partners. We're working hard to save children. He said, we know all that. We want you to host a brand new television program. And I go, okay, what are you talking about? They said, it's modeled after Crime Watch UK in England, a show produced by the BBC, which does recreations, broadcast on British TV, very successful, been on at that time 20 years. We've started a new network called Fox, funded by a then millionaire, he wasn't a billionaire, Rupert Murdoch. And we have one night of programming, Sunday night, with one show called 21 Jump Street, with a young musician from South Florida that we picked off Sunset Strip, and his name is Johnny Depp. And I went, I never heard of Johnny Depp. I don't know who the hell Rupert Murdoch is. Nobody's ever heard of Fox. There'll never be a fourth network. And I don't know anything about TV. I never cared about being involved in TV. See you later. I resisted. They said, we have cast actors. We've done screen tests for act. You're the guy. Fox lawyers and Rupert, and at that time, Barry Diller, the head of Fox, they had lost $160 million in 2 years. And they were desperate for a hit. And they went, you're the guy. I said, okay, here's the rules. I'm not coming to Hollywood. I want a show done in DC. I treat the victims with dignity. I pick the cases. You don't give me any Hollywood cases. We never show the face of a child. If a woman is a victim on this show, she wants to be in blackout, we will, but she can say whatever she wants. And I don't want any cops to answer the phone. I want my operators to answer the phone. We won't trace or tap calls. The cops can be there, but it's going to be my bond of trust with the public. I learned that over the years, up until 1987, that if you ask people to do the right thing, as long as they aren't victims of retribution or revenge, as long as a DA doesn't say, hey, you've got to be at the trial now, even though you turned in your gangbanger cousin Julio or your uncle who's a serial pedophile, you got to come to trial now and maybe get killed after the trial. I went, no. And they went, wow, for a guy that was never in TV, you got a lot of demands. And I went, I'm a businessman, successful businessman, take it or leave it. They took it. I picked the first case. I picked David James Roberts, top of the FBI's 10 most wanted. He had raped 27 women, served 6 years, got out, murdered 4 people, 2 small children while he was on parole. How the hell do you get paroled after you rape 27 women? They caught him for the second time. He faked an illness. He went to a hospital. A friend had left a gun and he escaped. He escaped with not being tried. I mean, it was just, anyway. He was my top of my list. That's the guy I wanted to catch. I came over to Reveille and said, look, I want to do this show. It may change our life. We've gotten a lot of death threats already. I'll be on TV and it could be very difficult. We had gotten calls from NAMBLA, North American Man-Boy Love Association, whose slogan is it's sex before 8, who rape and kidnap children. They have their own newsletter, their own group. They had threatened to kill Megan. They had threatened to kill me. And that was before I even did the show. Reve had to go to the Bahamas for 6 weeks while I stayed in the house hoping they'd come and we could catch them. So we already had our trials and tribulations. You know, Reve never hesitated for a minute. I said, I'm so worried about you and Megan. She went, this is what we do now. This is our reality. Go do it. Maybe you'll catch the bastard. So I profiled David James Roberts. Number top of the list, 3 years he'd been out there. Every FBI agent was looking for him in the country. I caught him in 3 nights. 3 nights. And guess what he was doing? A serial rapist, child killer. He was running a shelter for the homeless on Staten Island. He'd received, the homeless shelter had received awards. He was hiding in plain sight. A sociopath, no remorse, running a shelter for the homeless, still thinking about where he could rape women and hurt women. He had all kinds of articles in his room. But I'll tell you what, that launched the show. The network became bigger. It went from 60 affiliates to what it is now, 100 plus. And America's Most Wanted became a #1 primetime hit for 25 years. The American public helped me catch over 1,400 uncatchable fugitives in 45 countries, guys from wanted by Scotland Yard, Interpol. The best thing, we recovered 61 stranger abducted missing children alive, Elizabeth Smart being one of them. I caught 17 guys off the FBI's 10 Most Wanted. The public, which soon became the world once the internet was involved, I caught the uncatchable bad guys because the public trusted me and I trusted them to do the right thing because most people are good.
And I love how you bring in the public. So many people on the chat are just thanking you, John. Your work has been so amazing and impactful. I know that you probably have a million tips for parents, but people watching that have kids, do you have a #1 tip for how to keep your kids safe, or a place that you direct parents to go to learn how to do this?
#1 tip is don't believe it can't happen to you. Doesn't matter whether you live in Beverly Hills or in the hood. Pedophiles know no boundaries and they groom children. And now because of the internet, it's more dangerous than ever. They don't just steal your identity, they're grooming your children. They exchange child pornography. America is the #1 violator of children. We're the #1 sex trafficking country of children in the world. So I say to people, #1, don't believe it couldn't happen to you. And #2, your kid knows how to work that smartphone, that Xbox, or that computer better than you do. So you better start talking to them. You better go to CRC's website or missingkids.org, the National Center's website, because I know nobody taught you how to be a good parent in college or grade school. No one taught you how to make your child safe on the internet. These things, these 2 websites, all our tips are for free. We have safety programs for schools. And if you care about your kid, you sit them down and say, look, if somebody approaches you online, comes up to you outside, give them those tips, how to avoid exploitation. And especially online, you say to your child, I won't take away your computer. I won't take away your smartphone. If you feel uncomfortable, you tell dad or you tell mom. And if you feel uncomfortable telling your parents, then go tell a teacher. Nobody's gonna punish you. Nobody's gonna take your devices away from you, and we'll do something about that person. We'll try to track that person down. So it's a learning process, but I'll tell you, parents ask me all the time, and I say, have you ever talked to your kids? Well, you know, my 16-year-old daughter won't let me in her bedroom, and she won't friend me on Facebook. I say, well, now that's the time to take her computer away, because she should friend you on Facebook. You should know who she's talking to, and you're in charge of keeping her safe. And when she tells you, oh, it's my privacy, etc., then you know she's on Instagram and hopefully not sending nude pictures to some high school football hero who's going to send them to his 50 friends, show them to his 50 friends because she loves him. So, you know, it's a dangerous road. And I say to parents all the time, last tip, parent up. That boy or girl is your responsibility till they're 18. You're supposed to feed them, held them, take care of their health care. And then at 18, if they made it to 18 safely, they can join the army, they can vote, they can go away to college, they can do whatever they want. But you have got to parent up. Your job is to keep your kids safe online. So take the time. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know how to talk to your kids. You're awkward and feel bad about it. Parent up and talk to your daughter, talk to your son, and give them the tips. that you can learn, and there are multiple tips. It would take me
Great.
forever.
And you mentioned the 2 websites. So the 2 websites are I'm assuming you're talking about NCMEC?
NCMEC is missingkids.org.
Okay.
CRC is CRC.
Childrescuecoalition.org.
Yep, childrescuecoalition.org.
So those are the 2 websites for everybody watching to go to if you want to see. And John, I mean, started that. So all of those tips, videos, it's all great.
in 17 languages, everything's free. Just take the time and don't think it can't happen to me. And remember, it's your job to keep your child safe, to give them the tools, because knowledge is power.
Amen. And those videos are fantastic. Last question for you, John, before we move on. And you segued to it beautifully, of course, because you're such a wonderful television host, but you're talking about keeping your kids safe online. How important is the work CRC is doing?
Incredible, because that's what Carly learned from her dad, the dangers of the internet. She has learned how to catch bad guys on the internet, as well as save children and educate children. The internet has become, they did a huge study in England, English Parliament. They found no redeeming social value in anything like Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram. It's just a way for those companies to sell all your data and make a fortune. A lot of those companies are supporters of the National Center, but the internet, yes, it is the international superhighway, but it's the place where you can do a lot of horrible, terrible things. The dark web is the scariest place that's out there. With the COVID virus, tons and tons of bad guys, pedophiles. They're not just trying to move money and steal your identification stuff. They're trying to get your kid to come out somewhere and meet them. So it's a very dangerous place, the internet. We live in a society that people never dreamed about 10 years ago. So I say to parents, yes, your kids have to have a notebook, might have to have a tablet, an iPad, or their phone to do their homework, but you better talk to them about what's out there, because the bad guys are just waiting. They're in their caves and they love the coronavirus. They just, wow, they got time. Kids are on their devices all day long. They're not in school. All the Carly.
We put a lot of the data that Child Rescue Coalition found on their Facebook page because they found that there were so many abusers online during the pandemic, during lockdown.
Spiked tremendously. The tips to our cyber tip line, the tips to CRC, the actual cases of, now mom's gone all day and that creepy ex, stepdad or boyfriend's home molesting the children, the spiking them, or they're trying to lure the children out. So yeah, the numbers have spiked tremendously during the pandemic.
And just a reminder that you can donate. You'll see the link in the chat to Child Rescue Coalition while we're talking.
That's what we're all about tonight. They can't function. They can't pay the bills. They can't pay the small staffs of the dedicated people salaries, and without the support of the public. So if you're sitting home watching this in the pandemic, you got to know that CRC is saving children's lives. Their track record, Dad had a great saying, check out somebody's track record. They've got an incredible track record, 5-star on charity. They need money. And there's so many ways you can donate, so many ways.
Thank you so much, John. We're going to come back to John in just a few minutes, but I want to move on to Carly Yost, the founder of Child Rescue Coalition. And I just want to correct something I said a little bit earlier, Carly. I said that you had arrested 1,200. Your software has helped lead to the arrest of 12,000. So I misspoke there, and I want to make sure I get the facts correct. But Carly, I want to come to you. You heard the history. We heard the history of your company and how John started NCMEC. How has your generation kind of evolved this work, and what are you most proud of that CRC has accomplished?
Yeah, so really it was watching John and my dad fight for this. Their passion was just contagious. And in a world where we talk about a lot of things being contagious right now, this is something that was good that's contagious, which was a fight for really one of the most important causes that is out there, which is protecting our children. So it was after Dad passed away that my sister and I, was really unexpected, and we said this technology is too important to not continue. We need to make it free and available to law enforcement all over the world. And that's when we were able to take the existing technology and transition it to a nonprofit to make sure that it's free, accessible, and available to get into law enforcement's hands all around the world. But really, it's all about getting every generation to be passionate about this cause. So my mom, Judith, my sister, Desiree, my Aunt Susan in South Carolina, even my young kids who are 2 and 3 years old and 5 years old are coming to our Blanket and Bear Hugs events where we're making care packages for law enforcement to give to victims of crimes. And it's really involving all generations and being able to know that this is really such a passionate thing that we all need to be involved in. And we do have events where we have the community come in. So those Blanket and Bear Hugs events. I know, Kristen, you've come, you've brought your
Love
family.
it. Love it.
And it even inspired your daughter to write a blog for us, who's 10 years old. I mean, it's amazing to see all different generations coming together to fight for something that really is so important.
Carly, you've done so much in the 6 years that you guys have been an organization, a nonprofit. What's the next step for Child Rescue Coalition? We see the statistics in the chat. We know how many children you've rescued, but what's next? What's the goal that you really want to accomplish?
It really is just making sure that we get this technology in as much law enforcement hands as possible. Also, having companies out there realizing that they can be working with us to use the technology and data that we have to put a stop to predators that are using their platforms. When Megan came to me and we spoke to Jessica about doing this project, we were so excited about the potential of really bringing so much awareness to this cause and the fact that our technology exists, because the more hands we get this technology into, the more predators we can put a stop to. So corporations, the community, corporate sponsors, we encourage them to learn more about us, join the fight to stop child exploitation and end this horrible problem.
Yeah. Carly, there's a lot of questions in the chat that are so great. People want to know how the technology works, how they can get involved in Blankets and Bear Hugs. So we're going to try to get to all those questions at the end because I love seeing all these questions. Last question to you, Carly. John gave us some great advice how to talk to our kids. That was so just so helpful. But for you, you guys at Child Rescue Coalition give a lot of great tips. Do you have 1 or 2 tips you can give to the parents that you recommend on how to keep kids safe online?
I mean, John said so many great tips. I mean, really is such a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this. And I think one thing he said was exactly right. It's not about where you live in the world or where it could be happening if your area is a target for this. It's really happening in all areas and in our backyard. But the fact that technology is bringing it into our house. So we have a quote out there from one of our officers saying that children used to be safe in their bedrooms and now they're no longer because of all these devices and technology and ways that predators are now entering your home. So really be cautious of not allowing children to be using devices in private areas in their bedroom or bathroom. Make sure they're in open areas. And also, like John said, you're the parent, you can actively participate in what you're allowing them to do online. Make sure you know what social media networks they're on, check in on them regularly, and know the passwords, because I think if anything were to ever happen to your child, even if you didn't know where they were for a few hours, if you could just have the access to who they're talking to and who they've been communicating with on those networks is really important information to have.
That's a great tip and something I never thought about. So thank you for sharing that, Carly. I want to bring in Megan because Megan, you've been a hot topic of discussion in this chat so far. Your dad talking about you, Carly talking about you. So hi, Megan. I know that your whole life you have watched your parents, John and Reve, continue this fight. I mean, our film that we're going to see soon is called Join the Fight, and that's what your parents have been doing your whole life. What impact did that have on you growing up?
Well, I'd have to take an hour, and more, not an hour. That's far not enough justice. But it's had a huge impact on my life. I mean, it's the core of, of who we are. We know as children growing up and now as adults and parents ourselves, we know that, what we see from our parents and how we grow up has a huge impact and is our foundation. So, you know, this has been very integral. It's interesting how we choose our life experiences. And, you know, I think that my parents have been very diligent and very, just divine, and really showing how to not make something be in vain, how to truly be vehicles for change. And through, you know, these horrors that we see in the world today, especially going on, that one person can truly make change. And that's how we network out, and that we can do this. This isn't a rollover thing. This isn't a, you know, be afraid. Too many people know about this. There's too many people with good hearts. There's too many, you know, people speaking out, and we're at a time where everyone's had enough of a lot of things. So I think to really be shown throughout my life, you know, a way to, you know, to really use hardship as a life director, and to really be shown true purpose through, you know, how we individually experience trauma has really been a huge thing in how we can truly come together and make change for the world, you know, in that way. It's not bigger than us.
That's a beautiful lesson and a beautiful answer. And what a wonderful way what a wonderful thing to learn as a child. I know that you are a mom now. You have very young children. So what are some of the things that you personally do? I mean, you lived through this, you know what your family went through. So what are you doing to keep your kids safe and help make that change that you just spoke about?
Yeah, well, I mean, my parents were always, I mean, especially given the situation, they were always absolutely immaculate and amazing about keeping us safe. That was always first and foremost, you know, to the work. And because also that's what we were living, you know, we have to be living the work that we're trying to do. So, you know, for us to grow up that way, and for me to now have 3 children of my own in this modern world that we live in with technology and all of this that, you know, creates these issues, it's been interesting to navigate. And that's actually why I'm here. I do believe that it's an updated version, if you will, in this world of technology, of what we started and what my parents started years ago, in terms of really empowering. We have to update things. We're redefining things. Let's do it in a great way and really impact people. Let's educate mothers and children. Let's, you know, really show people how you can fundraise in your community and get that technology and have those, you know, empower those police departments or empower the community together to identify the direct guys in your town, the direct IP addresses that we then go, you know, that they can go and then, investigate and apprehend directly. There is no bigger than us thing anymore. This is, you know, if everyone wants to talk all this, you know, new normal and all these things that we're all embracing, we need to get smarter. We need to, you know, come from the top. And I think that that's really been another thing that I've been shown by my family. And, you know, I'm so happy that CRC has been an amazing continuation of this, and to really be able to focus on this. I think this technology is an absolute godsend in today's society and on the planet.
And I'm assuming that's why you wanted to work with them, because so we're about to see a short film after we speak to Megan and Jessica. Megan was did the voiceover for the film. Why did you want to work with Child Rescue Coalition on this project and this grant from Eyes on Your Mission?
Well, you know, Jessica and I have been friends for a very, very long time. You know, the Army for Good is always connected, and it shows up when you need it. And we have been connected. All of us have been, as you see tonight, for very, very long. And Jessica graciously has always, you know, just been a true friend of integrity, and came to me and said, hey, you know, knowing that she does nonprofit, you know, video work, and that's what her company supports and does from her heart, and what her mission has always been. And, you know, for her to come to me and say, you know, I do this thing every year, and, you know, I got this application and it says your dad's name, and, you know, I need the scoop here. Like, you know, I know he doesn't endorse a lot. You're like my best friend. What's going on? And I said, oh my gosh, Carly, yes. This is divine, you know, timing. This is absolutely amazing. I have 3 children now. I am, you know, paving the way with Generation Independent. You know, I just had my last child, my 3rd child, less than a year ago, on my own in my bathtub in 18 minutes. So I really want to be able to set the foot, you know, I take a back step. I let my father and my brothers, they have their place. And, you know, I really also want to show how we all have a place in this. And mothers and children are what are going to save the world. I'm sorry, we are not sorry.
Yes,
So we
I
have
love
to
that.
really
Can you
focus
give a round of
on
applause
that.
for that.
It is. It really
And
is.
John
And
Walsh,
this
of
is an-
course, not just
this
mothers.
is-
That's
no,
too.
really, thank you, because this is an issue that if anyone has anything to say about, then they need to be looked at. So, this is what should transcend our issues of the time, our division of the time. I can't even really see anything else going on until this is really addressed. This is our children. This is our future. Our
Yeah.
children
Yeah.
are our future.
Yeah.
So for me to see such an organization doing work where we've talked now, and we'll give you that after this program, what Carly and I have worked on, and with the wonderful staff at CRC in terms of, action and how we can do that. We're going to give you action points. We're going to go through that stuff, which Kristen will cover later for us. And I just really want to emphasize that we are here to do stuff. This is not, as my dad mentioned, hiding in the dark anymore. So.
Well, Megan, you've got a lot of supporters in the chat right now. They are cheering you on. So thank you for your passion and thank you for working on this project. I want to bring in Jessica because we want to debut the short film very, very soon, but we have to talk to Jessica. So Jessica, you are the creator of the short film Join the Fight, and you did this through your company or your nonprofit called Eyes on Your Mission. So tell everyone that's watching, what is Eyes on Your Mission?
Well, Eyes on Your Mission is a nonprofit organization, and one of our programs is every year we pick between 1 and 5 nonprofits, and we donate our services pro bono. So in this case, last year when we were looking at applications, we had 120 applications for nonprofits, and we look at them obviously through a number of lenses. The application stood on its own merit because for us, I'm a technologist and I do video production and run my whole company online with all freelancers working virtually. And so I'm interested in technology and understanding how technology can make the world a better place. And when I read the application about the technology itself, I was like, wow. And then I read about the nonprofit behind the technology and I was like, wow. And then I read about their vision for what they wanted to do in the future and how they wanted to expand. And I was like, wow. And the application already had an A on it, but then when it said, oh, and by the way, our friend John Walsh, and I was like, I should just talk to Megan about this because Megan and I have collaborated in the past on things. And I said, maybe this could be something that we could triangulate with Megan and John and Eyes on Your Mission and my team. And so yeah, I mean, I think then Megan got back to me and said, absolutely. My father really rarely endorses things, but he feels very strongly about this nonprofit and is more than willing to collaborate with us. So it was just sort of like a slam dunk application. And last year into this year, we really donated most of our resources for the Eyes on Your Mission grant program to this project.
Yeah, and we're so grateful that you chose them for this incredible grant. I know that you have another project, and I love, you've told me about this project, but in addition to making this film, so tell everybody what you're doing, because not only do you make these films and help all these nonprofits, but you want to help students as well.
Yeah, and one of our other programs at Eyes on Your Mission is we understand that we can only do a handful of these projects a year. It's very time intensive and making no money, it's just not scalable. So what is scalable though is we have a new curriculum called the Filmmaking for Good curriculum, and we really teach young people ages 14 to 24 how to use their cell phone to make a short video similar to the one you're going to see. Obviously students aren't creating at the highest levels of production, but if they can use their phone and use their voice and use social media as a tool for social change, then that's really where my mission is and my vision is for the future from a scalable perspective.
Jessica, you do so much. You have such a big heart. Where does this come from? Why do you want to help so many people? Have you always done this as a child? Has this been your life's work, just to help everyone you possibly can?
Well, speaking of dads, my dad is actually on the webinar right now watching us and watching Megan and watching John and Carly and everyone. But he's always been an amazing role model. He ran a company and his charity was his employees. And he took care of 200 people, paid their bills, took care of their families, sent them to college, made sure they were okay during emergencies. And so I think I was really indoctrinated with a sense of moral obligation to help people when you can. And I think that I've done a lot of different kinds of projects over the year. I've done videos about restaurants and nightclubs and lawyers and accountants, and the projects that I work on that are philanthropic related are always the ones that are most fulfilling to me. So I've really tried to create a whole sort of business and nonprofit to do this kind of stuff on a full-time basis.
Well, speaking of dads, not to do a cheesy segue here, these shirts, y'all, would be a great Father's Day gift, right, John? Father's Day is this Sunday. So you guys can purchase this t-shirt. It's in the links. Also, we have raised already over $500 on this webinar. So thank you to everyone who has donated. That we are so grateful. Again, the links are in. You can just text "join the fight" to the number in the chat. But thank you so much. Okay, I can't speak, John. Maybe you should take over. John, do you want to take over and introduce this short film we're about to play?
Yep, I'd love to, because I wanted to say something about technology. It is such an integral part of our life, and it is so challenging. And there are great people in the tech world. Facebook sends 50% of the horrible child pornography images that they find online to the National Center to build cases and catch those bad guys. So and Instagram does it, and Google, so there's a lot of good people in the tech world, but there's a lot of horrible people in the tech world. It took us 3 years to shut down a website called Backpage. You could go on Backpage, and that website made $100 million a year average. You could go on and find out where sex traffickers and pimps were for 2 or 3 days. They come to the Super Bowl, to Las Vegas big conventions, to NBA All-Star games. And it took us 3 years to shut down that website, and it made $300 million telling people where they could go to have sex with a little girl, with a 12 or 13, 14-year-old girl. And they move them so fast. So the tech world is a dangerous world. And for every Backpage, there's other websites, opening up that will exploit children. So the tech world is so important. And that's why the National Center, and especially CRC, is right on the cutting edge. They are ahead of legislation. They're ahead of law enforcement. We give our tools to law enforcement. It's not developed by Congress. It's not developed by NASA. It's not developed by public or political organizations that can be funded. We beg and borrow money. And these corporations, these nonprofits, corporations turn us down. Oh, well, we're into save the whales, save the polar bears. That's all good. Save the rainforest. But imagine saving one child. So you've got all the bad tech side of it, doing all kinds of bad things. And you've got these little mom and pops, these small, private nonprofits. And I've got to say something about Megan and Jessica. Their friendship has been going on for years. And it's Jessica Kazorik. And that's her last name. If her dad's watching, you did a good job. You ought to be proud of Jessica, as proud as Reve and I are of Megan. But our daughters are fighters. They're fighters, and they love children. They have children, but they joined together. And Jessica, nonprofit is a tough thing to run. She gives out money that she's brought in to make videos for nonprofits like CRC. So between Megan and Jessica, they put together this video. I think it's top notch. I'm produce my own shows. I'm executive producer and all that crap. So I can be very critical. I'm a TV guy, and you got to watch this. It's only 5 minutes long, but it's the hard work of Jessica, and Megan does voiceovers. And Jessica, thank you for taking the time to help other little nonprofits make some money and tell their story. So let's watch. That's only 5 minutes. So give us 5 minutes of your time. Let's watch this beautiful little video. Child sexual abuse. We all know it's going on. You might have even heard me personally talk about it all these years on TV. It's horrifying and incomprehensible, and often we feel helpless, fearing there's nothing we can personally do to help law enforcement bring these criminals to justice. Possessing one single image of child sexual abuse material is a felony. What if law enforcement had a map of computers in your area that were in possession of these files depicting children being sexually abused? What if there was a software designed for law enforcement that helped make arrests to pull child predators off the streets? Well, I've been fighting the bad guys for almost 40 years, and I know what does and doesn't make a difference. And I'm here to tell you about something you can do to support an innovative nonprofit, the Child Rescue Coalition. They help law enforcement take down the bad guys and keep our kids safe. The internet gives child predators virtually unlimited access to child sexual abuse material, and the vast majority of viewers are or become hands-on abusers. And anyone who's in possession of this material has a staggering 85% chance of committing hands-on abuse.
Since the development of their CPS technology, Child Rescue Coalition, CRC, has identified 71 million unique IP addresses worldwide sharing and downloading sexually explicit images and videos of children. CRC collects and indexes 30 to 50 million reports of online users trading child sexual abuse material every day. It's important because technology has changed the way predators can find and share this material. It gives them access to our children and to content that could lead to sexual abuse. For every predator Child Rescue Coalition helps law enforcement apprehend, they prevent between 50 and 150 children from being sexually abused. Since 2013, their tools have aided in the arrest of 12,000 dangerous predators, the rescue of over 2,500 individual children, and prevented the sexual abuse of more than 600,000 children worldwide.
We must protect the innocent from exploitation and preventing sexual abuse by providing its leading-edge technology to law enforcement free of charge, so they can protect children by tracking, arresting, and prosecuting child predators worldwide. Child Rescue Coalition was the vision of a very close friend of mine, a great guy, Hank Asher. The nonprofit is now run by his beautiful daughter, Carly, with a tight team of passionate professionals. It's an organization that's leveraging big data to systematically change our approach to preventing child abuse. When law enforcement is trained to use this platform, they suddenly have access to data that helps them identify and track who's sharing child sexual abuse material. This is data the police have never had access to before. It's a real breakthrough technology, one that provides a solution we only recently realized. But here's the deal, we can't do it alone. If you believe in the right of a child to be safe from abuse, if you love children, if you're empathetic and know something must be done, then supporting the Child Rescue Coalition puts the power of this technology into the hands of thousands of law enforcement that don't yet know it exists, protecting young children across the globe. With a donation as small as $25, you can rescue a child from sexual exploitation and prevent abuse.
Visit Child Rescue Coalition's website to learn how we protect children from predators and find out how you can make an impact. Join us in spreading the word of this nonprofit nationwide, and in doing so, join the fight to protect our children from predators.
The power to make a difference is in your hands. Thank you and God bless.
I think we all need to give them a round of applause. That was so good. People
Yay!
in the
Yay! Thank you, team.
Jessica, I want to go to you. Your reaction when you see it played live, like how proud are you of the
My smile's definitely from ear to ear, and it pushed me knowing that John was involved and knowing that Megan was involved. It pushed us to really play at our A game. So I just wanted to thank you guys for collaborating, and this was a project that we'll be very proud of for many years to come.
And a lot of people are asking in the chat if we're going to share this video, and yes, we will be sharing this video on Child Rescue Coalition's social media. Carly, I know you want to say something to Jessica and John and Megan, so I'll let you have the floor for a second after your reaction to watching the video.
Yes, it just turned out so good. I just can't thank you guys enough. This really, it took so much of what our tool is. A lot of times it's very much behind the scenes and really explaining to everyone exactly how we're working, and hopefully just spread the mission so much. And working with you, Jessica, it was awesome. I got to be there when you were shooting. It just came out so professional. And Megan, I was just so excited, being someone I've known for so many years, and two moms getting to join together to really join the fight and spread the word. And John, thank you so much. Really, really amazing. Your friendship has meant so much to us. And definitely those who are watching, join the fight. So by clicking on the link, we're actually sending you your own action plan. I think Kristen's going to send it, which is going to be giving you the video itself, so you can share it, you can watch it, share it with friends. You get a whole action plan of how to support the cause, and even a I Join the Fight picture that you can spread on your social media. Really step-by-step guides of how you can take this awesome project and make it spread all around the world. So
Yeah.
thank you guys.
And what Carly's talking about, everyone who's watching, is if you have text Join the Fight to the 1-800 number that we've been putting in the chat, you will get an action plan sent to you. Megan worked really hard on this. This was her brainchild with Carly. So thank you, Megan, for that. And so you'll be getting that, and I'll talk about that a little bit at the end. But we have everyone has stayed on, you guys, in this webinar. We have quite a few participants here. So is everybody on the chat game for a few questions? A lot of people have been asking questions in the chat. John, are you good for?
I've got my live on too, guys. I got to interject. So we've got tons of viewers. This is awesome.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Are you okay? So a lot of people have asked how the CPS technology works. I feel like that video really eloquently explained it. Is there anything else, like in a shortened Cliff Notes version, Carly, that you want to add about the CPS technology?
Yeah, I mean, that's really what's so awesome about the video, is you really get to get a feel for how law enforcement uses it to identify child predators. But simply, we're in known areas of the internet. Our technology is sitting there, and we know that these child sexual abuse images are being traded and shared all around the world. We're able to capture those IP addresses, give them to law enforcement. We show them who the worst of the worst are in their jurisdiction, who's trading the most type of files, what age victims that they're trading. Usually they're very, very young, if not, under 5 years old. It's really horrific images and videos that they're sharing. The majority of these people are hands-on abusers. So we lead investigators to their door. We tell them exactly where they're located so they can make the arrest. And every file and image that they're trading is a felony. So it's enough cause to lead the investigators there, figure out who within the home is responsible for it, and make the arrest. And to date, we have led to the arrest of over 12,000 child predators. Our technology is being used in 97 countries around the world, and all of it free for law enforcement to use. So we want to keep that numbers going up and up and up, and keep helping catch as many potential bad guys as we can.
And Carly, I just want to interject because a lot of questions in the chat are asking about the software. So she just said it is 97 countries, and your donations actually help train officers to use the technology. So that's why your donations are so important. So every time you donate, another officer can be trained, which means more children can be saved. John, a couple people asked this question, and I don't know if you have an answer to this, but I'll throw it your way and you see if you have one. Someone asked, are there more laws that we need to safeguard children, in your opinion, and what would they be?
Yes, incredibly. I think most Americans don't realize that this is a country of 50 little countries. So some states have really good laws, tough laws, well thought out, and some have virtually no laws that really apply to the modern exploitation of children. So there are many, many laws, and a lot of states don't even do background checks on teachers. We all know about the pedophile priests and ministers and rabbis and soccer coaches, etc. But in many states, you still can be a teacher, especially in private schools without a background check. So those that's just one example of the laws. And the statute of limitation laws. I profiled a horrible priest in Rhode Island. I was brought the case when the girl that was molested turned 22 years old and went to the police and said, when I was 12 years old, a Catholic priest impregnated me, took my child and gave it to the nuns, who I have never been able to find out where that went. The girl had tried to commit suicide twice. And finally, when she was older, she got the courage to go to the DA's office. I profiled the guy, the priest. He had retired. A wonderful parishioner had given him 1-bedroom apartment in Pompano Beach. And we surveilled that because he disappeared. He saw himself on America's Most Wanted. Then all of a sudden, after I had profiled him 6 times, he showed back up into the apartment. And Broward County Sheriff's Department went and arrested and said, we got him. And he laughed. He went, I came back because the statute of limitations ran out a week ago. I'm free. You'll never be able to prosecute me. How can we set limitations on the terrible exploitation of children and women? Most children and women, boys or girls, it takes a whole lifetime to be able to tell somebody that it happened to them. And that lifetime is involved in suicide attempts, alcohol abuse and drug addiction. It's debilitating what people do to children. And this arrogant guy got away with it, and he's still around. And he's never been convicted as a sexual predator. But if he molested and impregnated one little girl, who knows how many other girls he molested while he was a priest. And the Catholic Church admitted that over a 20-year period in Ireland and Italy, and mostly in America, there were over 10,000 priests accused of molesting children. And not one of those priests, not one, ever went to jail. Only now do priests get accused, but they
So
moved
that's
them.
your next job, right? That's the next thing you're working on?
Well, and it's not just priests. There's a lot of great priests out there.
I want to interject something. I will speak over my no, sorry, excuse me, Dad. It is my dad, so I get to do that, right? I do want to interject what he's saying here and add to being the mom in the modern world and having this be a very prevalent issue in my life and in all of ours. What we're going through now, we are very fortunate in this unfortunate time that people are realizing these things, and they are realizing. We have heard these great examples about priests that my father's bringing up, but we also, as he did first mention, we need to realize that this is not just something that doesn't touch us, that's something we hear about. This is something that every day people are posting about on Facebook, and the new, even MSM is coming out with apprehensions all over the country, all over the world. This is something that is being heavily attacked right now, behind the scenes, like we keep saying, and it's really prevalent. This is something that is only going to continue to be a benefit to us in the future. And as more people start to learn the realities of this world, which again, we mentioned dark web. So when people begin to truly realize the realities of this world, this is something that is absolutely wonderful for us to have. This is a blessing for us to be able to directly apprehend, identify worldwide.
Yes, absolutely. And I love everybody's passion on this panel. I just want to, there were a few more. Oh, go ahead, John.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah, of course.
Again, I wanted to thank all of you, the panel. I know we're moving on here and stuff. And I wanted to say to Jessica and Carly and Megan, Reve, my wife is here. She's been sitting here listening to the whole panel. And
Hi, Reve.
she thinks,
Hey, Mom.
she absolutely thinks the video is fantastic.
Oh,
From a television standpoint and being the executive producer, and Jessica, I'm bragging, I won an Emmy for excellence in television. Couldn't you have airbrushed me and made me look a little? Just kidding. Just kidding. Kidding. That was a joke. But anyway, it's beautiful, and you and Megan took the bull by the horns and are helping CRC out. And I know I'm talking about priests in the tech world and stuff. There's a lot of great priests, but people forget that 80% of the crimes against children happen by someone they know. So, the stranger abductions are horrible, but they're rare. 80% of the crimes against children is the trusted rabbi, doctor, soccer coach, etc. And we have to be diligent. We really have to be diligent, and the laws have to be better. They've got to be better. So, education, I say it, and what you're doing here tonight, Carly, and how you guys put this together, your team, knowledge is power. It truly is. If you educate cops, and they don't have the resources to develop these programs, isn't it one that came from the private sector? Comes from the nonprofit sector, from your nonprofit, Jessica. Every year you help out a nonprofit. So I thank everybody that came on, but I say this to them, don't forget, this is about donations. This is about money. We can't develop those programs and give it to cops for free who can't afford these programs if you don't donate. So dig into your little wallet and let those butterflies fly out and get those credit cards and those checkbook, whatever, however you send it. But that's how we develop these programs. That's how, that's how we get these things into the hands of police. So
Absolutely. And thank you so much for mentioning the donations. We're over $1,400. So thank you to you, John. Thank you to everyone donating. And I want to tell everybody in the comments, you can go to childrescuecoalition.org to learn more about blankets and bear hugs. There's been a lot of questions about that. You can read about their technology. They have a blog of how to keep your kids safe. Also, John mentioned the NCMEC site, which is missingkids.org. They have tons of videos, so make sure you check that out. I wanted to say thank you to all of you, Carly, Megan, Jessica, John. We are so grateful for all of your time tonight. All right, and everybody watching, thank you. Almost everybody hung with us. 80% of the viewers are still here. So thank you guys for watching us so much. But you too can make a difference right now. After this event is over, you'll get your very own action plan that Carly and Megan worked so hard on. You can get concrete steps so you can join the fight and protect children in need. Please also consider a donation. If you also enjoyed this talk, save the date for our next virtual event. You guys, it's called the Summer Safety Series. It's going to run from July to September, and each month we're going to have a featured speaker. Join Carly on Facebook Live, and the first one is spectacular. Greg Schiller is an assistant U.S. attorney. He is so good. I've seen him speak. I can't wait to hear him again. I learned so much about how to keep kids safe. That's July 15th at 12 p.m. So please join us each month. And Mo is an investigator who's on the chat, who's been watching this. She's going to be one of the guests as well. And we're so grateful you're here, Mo. All right, we want to thank everybody for watching again. Child Rescue Coalition appreciates all of your support. They couldn't do what they do without you. We are just so grateful that so many of you logged on to join us for this virtual event. We can't wait to see you at the Summer Speaker Series, and have a good night, everybody.